the next exciting thing for Patriots fans is looking at the draft. And it's not the way you wanted it to shake out. And if I keep thinking about the fact that they should be picking number one, I'll be even more depressed than I usually am. We just got to think about number 4 and try to get it in our minds that there was no chance for the Patriots to have the number 1 pick in the draft. Because 4 is not the end of the world. It's literally the worst you could have done going into the final weekend. But it is not the end of the world. And I'm starting to see the mock drafts come out, and here in January, those kind of get all over the place. But I'm surprised at how many people have Abdul Carter from Penn State falling to like between 7 and 10 in the draft. Because before I looked at the mock drafts, I'm thinking, boy, I hope Abdul Carter is there at 4. And he probably should be. But I look at these mock drafts, and they all have the Patriots taking one of the tackles. And the closer we get to this thing, I don't know that they take a tackle at number 4 overall. I really don't. As much as that looks like the biggest need for the team, and certainly in the early parts of the season, that was definitely the case, right? You saw how bad that offensive line was, and it didn't really get any better. But when you watch the Patriots every week, you realize that they need help at every position except for quarterback, every single one. And how pathetic it was towards the end of the season that they couldn't even get a hand on a quarterback, couldn't even pressure him into a bad throw, not one time. And you need help literally everywhere. And when it's not a great tackle draft, I just don't see it. And I'm seeing some of these mocks taking Will Campbell at 4 from LSU. And some of the ESPN analysts, and some of the other ones too, but ESPN, they had the 4 analysts put down there. 2 of them didn't even have Will Campbell in their top 10 tackles because they don't see him as a tackle in the NFL. He's going to be a guard. Hand size isn't big enough. His total size isn't big enough. There's a real situation, a real scenario where Will Campbell is not a tackle in the NFL. And some people have the Patriots taking him at 4 overall. The closer we get to this thing, the more I don't see it. The difference between tackle number 1 and tackle number 3 or 4 in this draft is not that great. To which, the Patriots can be shucking and jiving. They can trade for another first-round pick, or they can pick their tackle in the second round. I think that's totally doable. I saw one mock, by the way, that had the Patriots trading to 17 as well and having them pick, I think they had picked Banks, the tackle from Texas, at 4, and then trading for number 17 to get the tight end from Penn State, which, worse things. But if Abdul Carter is there at 4, I don't see how you pass up. I mean, there's all these comparisons to Micah Parsons, and honestly, folks, it's not that far off. The comparisons come because he is a pass rush specialist. Well, a good pass rusher who wears number 11 at Penn State. And I refrain to call him from a pass rush specialist because he was pretty damn good in run support as well in his time at Penn State, specifically this past year. He is a tremendous athlete, like tracks down running backs, can drop back in coverage, obviously to very short routes, but he has the athleticism to chase guys downfield. And that's not a luxury you're getting with all the great pass rushers out there. And you look at his numbers, 12 sacks this year, 4 pass deflections as well. You won't find many guys at the top of the draft who are putting those 2 numbers together, 4 or 5 pass deflections and 12 sacks, a couple of forced fumbles, a bunch of tackles for loss. He had a pick last year with Penn State. So he's a freak athlete who can just cause all kind of disruption, mainly in the pass game, but in run support as well. Now, that does take a bit for guys to adjust to in the NFL, even the guys who are really good at it in college. But that's what makes Micah Parsons probably the best defensive player in the league, because he can do both at such an elite level. And he came in as a linebacker and can still play some linebacker. I think he might be listed as that, but 5 technique, out on the edge. You lost it when you traded Matthew Judon, which was a fine trade. I thought that was a good trade, actually, for what you got in return and what he was going to give you this past year. And you need to retool that. You have Keon White on one side and Abdul Carter on the other. Like, that is a foundational piece of a defense right there. That's how you rebuild your defense. And some of the knock on Abdul Carter is they don't think he's big enough to really be a long-term defensive end in the NFL at 6'3", 260. I think he probably is, but it does bring up an interesting kind of wrinkle to this because of now who's in charge with the Patriots and Mike Vrabel. Because if Abdul Carter isn't big enough to line up in the 5 technique, the whole season for a whole career in the NFL, if he's not big enough to play defensive end at a high level, I'd be fascinated to see if he has positional flexibility. Because with his athleticism, I mean, that kind of guy could play linebacker, outside linebacker, which is not unlike what people were saying about Mike Vrabel coming out of college. Similar size, actually a little bit smaller. He was a defensive end at Ohio State and put up pretty similar numbers to Abdul Carter. And by the time he gets to the NFL, he was special teaming with the Steelers, and he comes to the Patriots to be an outside linebacker in the 3-4 because he can play a little bit in coverage. He's fast as hell, and he has that kind of size where he can play a little bit of both. He was obviously still a tremendous pass rusher as a linebacker, but I wonder if that could be in the cards for Abdul Carter. Now, I know the obvious elephant in the room. You don't draft those guys number 4 overall. Vrabel was a terrific player. And again, I think he should get some more hype for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But you don't draft a guy like that number 4 overall. You draft Micah Parsons number 4 overall. You draft Chase Young number 4 overall. Of course, he went number 2. But those kind of guys, Aiden Hutchinson number 1 overall. Like that's the kind of guy that can't miss defensive end that you go and pick up with a top 5 pick in the draft. And I think Carter could still be that. I really do, for my amateur pro football scouting. But I'm surprised at some of these that have him dropping just between 7 and 10. I just don't see that. And the more I see these mocks, the more I'm wondering, is Travis Hunter also going to be available at 4? Is someone going to take Abdul Carter at 3? And honestly, if you're the Patriots, I'd take either one of those guys. And to be totally frank with you, which I can't believe, if you had told me in September I would be saying what I'm about to say, I wouldn't believe you. I would take Carter or Hunter before either of the tackles, Campbell or Banks. At this point, Campbell's a reach with so many pro scouts saying they don't see long-term future at tackle. You don't pick a guard in the top 5. I mean, the Patriots got crucified for picking a guard in the 20s in Cole Strange. And of course, looking back, that was probably a good thing that they got chastised for that. But yeah, I think the concern around Will Campbell not being a tackle, not being big enough to play tackle, is a bigger concern than Abdul Carter not playing defensive end. I think Carter can be that guy that can absolutely wreak some havoc. In fact, his size coming out of college is not too different from TJ Watt's. And TJ Watt's one of the best defensive ends in the history of the sport. So, I think absolutely Carter can have that kind of ceiling. Now, Abdul Carter thinks he's going number 1 overall, as he tweeted last night, 100 days till he goes number 1 overall. And he has said that his dream team would be the Cleveland Browns. So if he's still there for Cleveland, who knows? You could have Carter and Myles Garrett together. I think the Brownies need a bit more help at quarterback, though. If I just had to venture a guess, I think they need some help at quarterback. So Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter to the Patriots, either one in a heartbeat, and I'm taking them over the tackles.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.